February 5th. I got the 2000 tick chart on the left and the 1000 tick chart on the right. I'm looking for a trend line break here, and I noticed some momentum coming in right here. So I'm putting my stop right underneath that candle. Very, very small stop because I don't know how this is going to work out right here. I'm lifting it up to that candle that's on taking off. I want that to either go or just have as small a stop loss as possible.
Stop filled.
All right, so I got the like one tick. The reason why I had to keep it close is because that's a momentum trade and there is no real test of the trend line. There's no consolidation or anything. Let's see if it comes down further. Yep, it would have stopped me out for more, a lot more. So I'm glad I did that. That was a riskier trade. Momentum plays are risky. Now it's testing the trend line. We could try it again. So right here would be a good place to try it. Right off that
Order
trend line.
filled.
Keeps going. I want to get stopped out real fast though. There's the test. I tested that trend line. Now we can break even. See if it keeps going, at least up to the next trend line or target up there. If it starts me up for break even, I'm okay with that.
Stop filled.
Okay, break even. We tested it off that trend line right there to see if it was going to, go right up real quick. Over here on the 2000, we kind of see things a little bit differently. And I want to use the 2000 as a backup. Sometimes it's cleaner. It's not as messy, not as choppy. Here's the trend line that we just tried to take, and then now it's bouncing again. Now it's looking like it wants to bounce. I'm not going to try it a third time. Unfortunately, I've already tried it enough. I tried 2 different times in there. I'm not going to try it again. I'll have to wait for another trend line break. 2 failed trades. We're only down less than $4. That's good. Looking at the 5000 tick chart too, just to see shapes and development of the candles. Now remember, I'm watching the 10,000 tick chart moving averages. I really don't want the 20 to go underneath the 50 right here. We don't want the 20 to go underneath the 50. If it does, we still have room. As long as the 200 is going up, and as long as price stays on top of it, we can let that violate and cross over. That's the optimization rules that we just came up with today, actually. It worked out pretty good. I'm trying to figure out when is the break point where I have to call it a short or call it a loss, though. I still need to work that out because there's going to be times when I try to take a trade all the way down here and it breaks and keeps going down. Consolidate. I guess that's it. Once it breaks the 200, consolidates and moves down, call it a day. So let's record that. As soon as it breaks below the 200 on the 10,000 tick chart, as soon as it breaks below and keeps going, we will close the trade out as a loss. I need to have my Fibonacci stuff drawn out on this thing. Okay, so what we did was we applied Fibonacci's on these pivots here, this pivot, and this pivot. We got over 50% and 60% ranges in all these different color lines, and we put them on all the charts. So they go across all of our time charts. So we'll be able to see these lines right here on the 5,000, 2,000, and 1,000. So next level down on the 1,000 is this 50% pullback right here. We could get a reaction down there. So let's keep playing. Let's push play. Let's adjust those moving averages. Once the moving average is no more valid, we need to get rid of it and create a new one based on the pivots, the new pivots that are created. This old one right here is the price had dropped below the pivot, so we're not interested in that because it's grinding lower. Let's create a new trend line up here. And I don't think I want to take this one because it's so close to this one. I think I'd have to wait for this one to be broken here. And then again, it may be too close to this one. So I've learned that today. Sometimes the trend lines are too close together and you need them, you need some space. I need to learn. This is in some kind of range right here. And a breakout just back to the top of the range is what's kind of expected. When something's in a range, I gotta decide and learn how to do this. I gotta learn how to do this. Everything's pinched in between the moving averages here on the 10,000 tick chart. Ping-ponging back and forth, creating a range. It's very difficult to get a trend line trade because there's no real trend line break. It's all going sideways. You might say, why not this one? Well, why not this one? It'd have to pull back, consolidate, and look like it's going up. I don't want to just jump in there now on it. And plus, I'm not too confident that it's going to really get any higher than this range. Of course, at some point it could just go right on up. But we need an entrance. We need a narrow range bar. We need proof. We need evidence. because it's in a range, I'm not convinced to take a trade. So we can get rid of this trend line now. Well, let's see. If it was going to break out of this trend line right here, it would come down and test it, bounce, and go right on up over the top of this. That is one scenario. I'm just not convinced. And it's right in the middle of the range. If you're going to take a trade on a range, you got to take it at the very bottom or the very top, not in the middle. And just because you have a trend line break and retest does not mean you have to take every one. And you have to judge the quality of the setup. And this is not a quality setup at all. In terms of trend lines, 5,000 tick shows a lot of pressure right there. I mean, I'm not too excited about taking a trade to the upside right there anytime soon. I'm trying to see if I was trading earlier than 9:30, if I was paying attention, this looks like something. What would happen here if we did this one? You know, when would we get in? That's the question. You know, breaks the trend line, closes strong above the trend line, and then it just keeps going straight up. I could have jumped in right there underneath that candle. That's why I like to go right underneath the candle if there's momentum. But with a range like this, you would think that it was going to retest. So I don't even know if you can get in that one because of the overall conditions. All right, here comes some kind of news at 10 o'clock. Jumping around there real quick. Quick acting. Well, where's the trend line? We have to redraw the trend lines now. Get rid of the ones that don't look good and put them on the new pivots. Get rid of that one. That's what we're at now. This is the new pivot on this side. It's where the price has developed. So we have to move the trend lines from pivot to pivot to pivot to get to the right trend line that we're looking for. We're looking for a break of the trend line, and the old trend lines have to go. And then we'll have to draw trend lines to the downside here if it keeps going down, starting with the highest of pivots on the 1,000 than it does on the 2,000 tick chart. So we got a trend line break here. Should I take it or should I not take it? It's at the bottom of this range. What's the quality of this trend line break? Let's take a look at the 5,000 tick chart. It's testing it on the 1,000 tick. See, that kept me out of using that one right there. If I wanted to trend line break and it comes down to test, jumping on it, and it just keeps going, stop me out. This kept me from getting on that. The 2,000 tick chart kept me from jumping in that. So let's adjust the trend lines now on the 1,000 because the 2,000 looks good. That's the trend line we have to get. Now, sometimes it accelerates to the downside where we can have a faster paced trend line. It's coming down to that 200 moving average. Now, should I take this one? It's right at an area of support, it looks like. Let's check this area out here. Gosh, there it goes. Should I get that? It's bumping into another trend line. That's the problem. See how that's bumping into another trend line? I'm not too confident about that. And see, the 2,000 tick chart would have kept me out of that because these two red candle pivots, the trend line was up higher. I guess it was this trend line here. Sometimes trying to catch the smaller time frames. It looks like you're getting a better entry, and sometimes you do, but it also can be a failed situation. I really want it to look obvious on the 2,000 and on the 1,000. If the trend line break is really crystal clear, plenty of room to go on both charts, I think that's a good opportunity. If it looks like it's having trouble on the 2,000, I don't really want to take it on the 1,000. Even if it looks better. I mean, this does look a lot better over here. It looks like, you know, if it could just, it already broke the trend line. You could try to jump in the trade and put the stop under here or under here, but you know, you got this trend line in the way, and it's a problem over here on the 2,000 tick chart. So I don't think taking that's a smart thing, even if it were to work. See, now on the next bar over on the 2,000, it would be on this side, probably, and that would clear that trend line, and then we could work with this one and see if it pushes up. Okay, let's pause for a second. I'm trying to see where I was at during this time right here. Because I did this already. This is replay for me. Let me look at something. I want to see where I was at with a picture. So we got to move the trend lines once we have a violation. Put that trend line up here on this. I don't think this one's any good anymore. Even if it goes that way, it's got to break that one now. Let's get rid of this one. Yeah, really we wanted to take that. It just didn't look good. So we got to keep drawing the trend lines. Looks like this is the major trend line right here. We've got that drawn on the 2000 tick chart. This 2000 tick chart's really helping guide us. You want it to look good on both charts, not just on the 1000. But we can draw some trend lines on the 1000 to see what's going on here. See, like this right here, makes you want to think that there's a trend line break coming. But when there's another trend line right above it like this, it's very dangerous. It could easily just roll right down. The 2000 tick chart is really helping us stay out of trouble. Okay, we see a little trend line break here. Let's see what happens. It doesn't look that good on the 2000 tick chart because there's just that trend line in the way right there. So if it starts to break right here, you got that other trend line in the way. I mean, it's got to at least close over the 8 EMA. So yeah, we made a note that it's closing down below the 20 and the 50 EMAs on the 10,000 tick chart. And our rule before was if the 20 crosses under the 50, don't take any trades. But we noticed that there's still some good opportunities. You can squeeze out some more opportunities even if the 20 drops below the 50 because the 200 is going up strong. So the new rule is if it closes below the 200 and the prices of the moving averages have crossed one another, that we need to get out of the trade and stop trying to look for longs until it at least gets over the 200 again. Is it just going to keep grinding and grinding? We got our trend line that it needs to break. That's the one we need to watch. This is the one that's going to keep me out of trouble. If I keep an eye on this one right here, we should do good. Because you can see all these other trend lines that were just broken, failed right back down below the 8 EMA. Now see this little trend line right here even? It's very tempting to try something like this. You know, break right here. But again, if it can't get over the 8 EMA and breaks the trend line and it's under the 8 EMA, that's too early and the trend line is too small. I got to avoid that kind of thing. A good trend line break is going to break over the 8 EMA. And we did have that right here on this one right here. We had it break over the 8 EMA right here and fail. But we had this trend line pushing down. No, not at the time, but it was right here instead though. It was right here pushing it down. So it was still in the way. Now it's still in the way here. So it's keeping us out of trouble on these fake trend line breaks because they're all over the place. Fake trend line break here. This is an interesting area just to buy. And I did buy right here in this area. And it's not the trend line break strategy. It's not the moving average strategy. It's a different strategy where you buy off of Fibonacci. I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to do it right now because I really want to practice this one strategy. And it didn't even really come down to like this pintail here, right into the 50% Fibonacci. It was close enough and I did it. That was the wrong timing and it never really came down into it. And so I jumped in early. And then I reviewed later and was like, why did I take that trade? And then I remember I was using a different strategy. I'm not doing the Fibonacci strategy right now. We have to focus on which strategy and setups we're trying to take. We're trying to take trend line breaks at Fibonacci levels. So if it were to break through a trend line at this level, but right now, just because it's touching the Fibonacci and testing and might do a pintail and, you know, that strategy by itself would be great. You know, it's worth a try. Try to go long now, keep it under the pivot right here as a stop loss because it may go right up on through there. And with a little tiny stop loss, sometimes you can get 10, 20 to 1. But that's not what we're doing right now. Let's focus. We really want to see this trend line break. And even on the 2000 tick chart, you got a lot of room to the downside on that thing right there. It's real nice. That's a lot. Let's open it up a little bit, see what we got here. It's coming right down to the 200 on that. That's a nice move down. And see, you can develop faster trend lines which tempt you to jump in on the new trend line break. But all that does is create a bunch of overhead trend lines. Really want to pay attention how these multiple trend lines fail. Because you think at some point the speed of it's going to change and you're going to be able to jump in and get a good trade. It's going so fast on the 2,000 tick chart. Let's look at the 5,000. Oh, that is the 5,000. Oh my gosh. I'm going to figure out which one I'm in here. So that whole time I was talking about the 5,000 tick chart keeping me out of trouble. Here's the 2,000 and it's still keeping me out of trouble though. I don't know. I might have tried something with this one. Well, you see that the candle didn't close. Where's that at? Let's study that for a second. This pintail that popped up right here was this area right here. So where's this at? Okay, so this could have been a challenge right here. This area right here could have been a challenge. Let's put a circle on it so we know what we're talking about. This area right here could have been a challenge because when it popped up right here, that's what it did right here on this pintail. But you can see the pintail did not close up in a strong bullish breakout. It gave us another top to another trend line. So there's resistance on that trend line. So we can't be too excited about it breaking this one when that one's in the way. And there's another one there. At some point, you got to get through the multiple layered trend line overhead pressure. So I think that this is something I need to realize. I need to realize that, well, we had this overhead here though. Okay, so this overhead was already in position. So like I said, when this broke this trend line right here, when this broke the trend line right here, I know that there's already a trend line up here that's in the way. So now that I'm starting to realize that, when it broke right here, it's right here, and the next trend line up is going to be in the way. So I can avoid that. I can avoid that. I don't have to take trades when there's overhead trend lines in the way. You want a lot of distance to the next trend line. You don't want to take it if there's one right there you can bump your head on. Okay, let's go. It's already past that one. 50%'s coming up at the 200 moving average on the 10,000 tick chart right below here, which would be an interesting area to take a trade. If it gets that far, I think it does. Remember, it's not closed above the trend line or the 8 EMA on the 1,000 tick chart. Okay, you see the difference? How it looks like it wants to break out that trend line. And yet over here, it's not very clear. So let's move it to the next candle. Move the trend line to the next candle. We got to keep it on the outer edge of the latest pivots. Okay, let's take a look at these strong candles here, though. I mean, I'm interested in if this candle were to close strong with a pintail 2 in a row like that, that'd be very interesting. You know, if we get some pintails coming off these trend lines, I'm very interested in that. Now, looks weak. Got some pintails cooking here on the 1,000 on the right. And we almost got the crossover that we were saying we can't really trade when the 20 crosses under the 50 moving average on the 10,000 tick chart. It eventually does cross under, but it never goes below the 200 and it bounces real nicely, which we're going to see here in a minute. This is a playback mode. I'm just trying to remember what I did right and what I did wrong. I had already taken a bunch of bad trades based on the 1,000 tick chart. I got faked out of a lot of trend line breaks because I wasn't watching the 2,000 tick chart. So that's why I want to see the difference here. And it is an amazing difference. See, I like this. I like the way this looks. So let's see if it breaks right here. See, now this is worth taking a try, but this other one's still in the way over here. It's still in the way over here on this. There's still a trend line in the way right there. Well, it's over here too, but it's putting forth some effort here to, I like, it feels a little bit more bullish on the bottom edge here. It's giving us, I don't exactly remember what happens. I know it bounces at some point, but I'm just trying to see what it was that I liked. Well, it looks like a breakout retest over here. It stopped going down real fast. It's consolidated. I like these pintails right here. I like this right here. If it could break out in this last trend line, we could try to get a little bit more daring and try to jump in right now before the trend line breaks. I'm going to try to wait. I just don't want it to take off without me. And sometimes if you think you're at the bottom, it's good to get in. See, like this little area right here would be good to get in. You'd use that as your stop loss. I could take a chance on that like this.
Order filled.
And what I'll do is I'll just use that candle as my stop loss. And even if it doesn't work, it's worth a try on that. See that little tiny bottom there? And that's not much of a loss if it doesn't work. So I can go right up here now and break even. I'll just stay at the bottom of the candle. I'll come to break even now. Okay, we're broke even. It's actually over this now. And it can easily come down and test and, stop me.
filled.
Yeah, it stopped me out for 0. But, this is the kind of place where you'd want to try to get back in it because it's coming down to test. If it creates a little tiny, a little tiny pintail, we could try to get back long on it. Because right now all it's doing is testing the trend line. There's no trend line. See how there's no trend line in the way for a long ways up. That's what we're looking for. No trend line in the way for a long ways up. We need it to look bullish here. We need it to put in the pintails. We need it to stay above the trend line. See, it's breaking below the trend line. I mean, it could be a bearish flag. I know it goes down again. I don't know if it goes down more right now. So on the 5,000 tick chart, yeah, on the 5,000 tick chart, it's trying to break that trend line right there. We're not really using that one. This is the one we're needing. We need to see a bullish pull. All right, look at that. Okay, let's try it again.
Order filled.
I'll try it one more time. I'll keep my stop under this trend line right here. I'll keep my stop under both of these trend lines. This one and this one. Okay? I like the way that's looking. And I mean, it could come down and stop me out. If it does, we'll have to keep figuring out what we did wrong and how to do it better. But I think that since it's above both trend lines, the one coming down and the one going up, that's pretty good support level. Okay, I think that's a pretty good support level. Our stop is here. Our entry is here. I'm trying to figure out what the risk reward is on this thing. Stop, price, risk reward. There's 1-to-1, there's 2-to-1, there's 3-to-1 up there where I'm at. Once it gets to 1-to-1, I'll break even. I really think this is even if it fails, a good place to try it. It's above all the moving average. It's above all the trend lines. All right. And there's nothing in the way. It's above 2 trend lines support. And even if it slams down and does a big wake up, I think it does do that. I still think this is worth a try. You just got to figure out how to get back in and get back in quickly and know that it's okay to get back in if everything else looks good. Sometimes when a wick is put in, it just stops you out, slams down on you, that you can get back in the trade. So if it breaks this trend line going down here, it's just a bear flag and it's going to keep going down. It could slam down and grind onto this trend line right here and bounce down lower. This might be the bottom pivot right here. I think it does go lower than this at some point, if I remember correctly. Still, this was a decent little try, even if it fails. This was a decent try. I'm happy about this. All right, it's pressing on the 1 trend line. All right. Hopefully it'll stay now. 2 try to sell off the trend line. All right, it's got us a nice little bullish pintail there. I like that. Hopefully it'll stay up. I think it puts in another pintail, though. I think it does go lower. All right, we got some bullish pintails here. That's what I like to see. I remember those from earlier. I'm not sure if it puts in one last pintail or not. That stops. I don't know if it does, it would be stopping me out, but that'd be fine because I'm in a decent area. Once it gets to 1-to-1, I can go to break even. See if it comes down here and whips me out. All right, this could be actually where it goes below the pivot down here, because eventually it does go below. I don't remember how high it got. It might be right here where it's going to stop me out and keep going low. Yep.
Stop filled.
Okay, that was a loss. Okay, let's keep looking for that trend line from there to here. We got one from here to here. Price gets pretty close to that 200 moving average on the 10,000 tick chart, which is right about underneath this 50% Fibonacci area here. I'm trying to see if it breaks this trend line. This might be an interesting place to actually take a trade. Okay, we got everything drawn. Let's see what we got here. Does it break over this? Let's see what it does. It's very close to that 50%. I think this is where I just jumped into. It got a pintail there. You see that pintail close to the 50% line, and I don't want to take any trades outside of this particular strategy. So we have to have a trend line break. That's what I'm waiting for. That's what we're going to do. Sometimes when you get multiple trend lines that are intersecting like this, that's a pretty good area of support, and we see that happen frequently, especially if pintails are put in and it's close to a Fibonacci level. So I say if it breaks right in here in this area, we could take a chance, actually, since there's two trend lines involved at a significant level. If it fails, it fails. That's okay. It is such a strong move down that it's not even over the 8 EMA yet. See, like right here, if I were to take a trade, it would be very risky, but worth the risk in a way.
Order filled.
So what I did is I just going to give it a try, and I've got my stop underneath the 50% level, underneath the two trend lines again. And if it fails, it fails. I'm willing to take that chance, I think, on this, because it's going to have to go through both trend lines and the 50% level to get me. But if it does and snaps up, then we really have a pretty good level of support.
Stop filled.
Okay, it did get me. Let's see how it reacts in this area. Okay, so it is trying to bounce back over the two trend lines, back over the, maybe that's what I should have waited for, it to actually come down and hit those areas, not that it won't come down and get me. So the trend line has been broken.
Order filled.
I'm gonna try it one more time, because now it's bounced off that area. I'll just put my stop right underneath that pintail again. It's something about that. There's plenty of room on this to go up to the next trend line. It's something about the double trend line and the Fibonacci level. Now, if it keeps getting me, I'm just going to have to figure out, I just can't figure this one out and just wait for a more clear. I mean, that's a pretty clear trend line break, though, right on a very significant level with two different trend lines. Even though that one should have been erased, now that it's still there, there's some power to it. We'll see. We'll see if it, lets me win on this one or not. Now it's over the 8. Okay, let's see what happens here. All right, let's see what our risk reward is here. Well, hopefully it'll get to 1-to-1 here. If it gets to 1-to-1, I can come to break even, or I can just come under these pintails. I really like using the two time charts, though, the 2000 and the 1000. That has made a big difference in interpretation. So yeah, you can see why I kind of changed the rules a little bit and modified them, because on the 30-minute chart here, you can see that it's still quite bullish, even though it slammed down. It came down into the 50% zone, the green box, onto an uptrending 200 moving average. 15-minute chart, it's just an ugly drop. Ugly drop. The hour chart isn't showing us a whole lot. I don't think it's moving. Yeah, the hourly chart's showing us a pretty bullish, and it came down to the green box, which is support. 20 and the 50 are both going up strongly. So, overall, I had to modify the rules a little bit. And the rules were, on the 10,000 tick chart, if the 20 EMA crosses over the 50, stop trading. But that's where the best trade was today. It crossed. I should have never taken that trade. This ends up being the best trade area of the whole entire day. So you can't limit yourself when everything else is bullish, when it's pulling back into great support and Fibonacci levels. You can't just cut yourself off because you have those rules. So the rules need to be adjusted and modified for situations like this. If it was no Fibonacci level, if it wasn't pulling back to support on other time charts, then obviously get out. But it's too important of an area to ignore to not try to take a trade. It's the best place of the entire day to take the trade. So now we can go to 1-to-1 here. So we're going to go, let's see if the stop loss is going to trigger it for us. We can come up a little bit. What I'll do is I'll move it up a little bit here. We'll go up to this pivot right here. Cut some of the loss out in case it comes crashing back down. Only problem is we're coming into a trend line right here on the 2000 tick chart. But I mean, if it's been a long extended move down, and it has, it should be able to get through that. If it's really at a support level like we're thinking, it should be able to get through that. Trend lines are made to be broken. Take it, yeah, take it. See if you can get up there. I'll
Order
close.
filled.
Okay, so the strategy was working. The trail stop was working. I went to the highest pivot I could get. It was working. It worked. Now we were down $28 and now we are up. No, we're only up $12.50. But at this point earlier, I was down $180, $200. I cut my losses by 90% by playing the replay here and by using the 2000 tick to keep me out of trouble. I really like that. I really like that.